Okay, we're back. We're live. It's 3 o'clock here in Honolulu, broadcasting from Pioneer Plaza at the core of downtown Honolulu and reaching out to the world, reaching out today to the Himalayas, I suppose. We're going to talk about the Himalyan Stove project. I'm not sure what category this show fits under. It could be, our show on ThinkTech Asia. It could be our show on Community Matters. It could be our show on technology. Maybe it's all of those. And George Basche joins us by Skype. He is the chief cook of the Himalayan Stove project. He is also the chief bottle washer, and we're not sure whether the cook or the bottle washer is the senior position, but he occupies them both. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Jay. They're both critical positions. You got to wash the bottles, and somebody's got to drive the train.
Okay. So where are you exactly?
Right now, I'm in Taos, New Mexico.
Okay, I knew that. Yes. So we do by Skype. We like to do by Skype because we meet the most interesting people like George. And this crossed my desk, and I really had to talk to George. I had to find out more about it. It's one of those special stories that we love to capture this on ThinkTech. George, by the way, we are a 501c3. We're nearly 15 years old. We broadcast 20 live streaming shows every week, and we have one, and they go hither and yon. They go live stream, they go on YouTube, they go on Ustream, Spreaker, they go on community television, Olelo, and we have another show that goes on cable television out here in Honolulu.
Busy schedule.
Exactly.
Good. Keeps you young.
It does. What else is there, actually? Once you find something you love, you got to do it. And that brings me to you. So the Himalayan Stove Project, it's about the Himalayas, and it's about stoves. And can you just give us a précis about how the stoves and the Himalayans get together?
Yeah, and I'm going to actually take it from the top very quickly. Household air pollution caused by inefficient cook stoves is the fourth largest health problem in the world. It affects 3 billion people, and there are 4 million premature deaths every year because people are breathing in this crappy wood smoke in their tightly built homes. We are addressing that problem in the Himalayas specifically and in Nepal, and we distribute free a very efficient cook stove. There's your technology that was designed in the U.S., is manufactured in Shanghai, and we organize the logistics of getting those stoves up into the high Himalayan environments. Our highest placements are at 14,000 feet. They use 75% less fuel, so they're very efficient. The air pollution is cut by as much as 90%, so we're solving the health problems. And each stove that we deliver transforms the life of a family.
Fabulous. Not to go too far off the trail, but we have a regular guest on our show by the name of Brad Wong. Brad is a retired surgeon, trained very well at Yale, an amazing man who has spent the rest of his life on something called the Aloha Medical Mission. And he takes medical missions of maybe 50 people for a couple weeks into the Himalayas, among other places. They're in the Philippines also, and in Myanmar also, and other places too. But I guess his most constant presence is in Nepal. And he'd been going to Dankuta, which is, I think, in the northeast of Nepal. But a year or two ago, he went to a place in the southeast, which was in a valley with an atmospheric inversion. And the exact process you're talking about was really hard to take. His team could not breathe. They all wound up with respiratory ailments. It was a combination of the cooking and the garbage burning in this area, and it was really awful. You'd think that in a third world country there'd be, some clear air, especially in the mountains, but not so. And I suspect that the work you're doing is probably in the same area that they brought his mission to.
Yeah, we tend to do it higher in the mountains, but we're really scattered all over the country because our distribution partners are active in many different areas, and each area has its own unique problems. But it boils down to less smoke, less indoor air pollution, less soot going out into the environment, which slows down the degradation of the glaciers. It's got all kinds of positive health and environmental aspects to it.
So who invented it?
The particular stove that we're using was developed by an engineering team at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. A couple of environmental engineers, fundamentally, they won a Rolex laureate for a previous project they did. They developed this stove about 10 years ago. And like many of us engineers, they say, okay, I got this, what do I do with it? Turns out that the Shell Foundation, as in Shell Oil, was aware of the global implications of household air pollution, and Shell gave them a grant of $25 million.
Oh, that's commitment.
Started, and that's 10 years ago now. They have distributed, it's just over 700,000 stoves on a global basis. They have a number of different models. We're using one that's particularly well suited for the alpine environment. The Economist just named them as ecological entrepreneurs of the year in this most recent round that the Economist does every year. So they're very, very capable, incredible guys. They have what they call a social enterprise. It's also a nonprofit, as is ours. And they're active in Africa. They're active in Central America. They've got probably 20 different models of stoves, because each region has its own fuel usages and its own cooking characteristics and cultural characteristics that you have to deal with, so that people are comfortable in making the transition from, in many cases, an open campfire in the middle of their home to something that is a machine.
Have you got one handy?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Maybe control room can take a look and Google one and see if we can get a picture of it.
If they go to our website, which is HimalayanStoveProject.org, we've got lots of pictures on the website.
Okay, Himalayan Stoveproject.org.
Right.
Anyway, so what is the magic recipe about this stove? What's the material, and what's the the air vectoring or whatever it takes to give you a good clean fire on it?
It's in the engineering. It's when they pull up the picture, you'll see that the stove itself is just a cylinder. Mm-hmm. It's a metal cylinder on the outside, and then it's got an interior cylinder. It's kind of an annulus, and the interior cylinder is shaped carefully to maximize the combustion efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's pretty technical. It's not like you could make one of these at home.
You could make one, but you wouldn't get the efficiency.
Yeah.
You could make one. It's pretty simple, but to really dial it in so that you get these tremendous reductions in wood consumption and pollution, that's pretty technical. Between the outer and that inner metal rim is a ceramic material, so that the heat is focused and directed to the cooking area, and the way the stove is designed to take a single kettle on top, but they make an accessory which we purchase and include with our package, which is like a two burner stove. Okay, mm-hmm. It extends off to the side, so you can cook with two pots, so that you can make a meal. You're not dealing with just a single pot.
We have one now. Let's look at it. I'm not sure, I don't think you can see it, but no. I can see it, and it looks pretty bright and new and spanking clean. And
yep. But even when it gets dirty, it still works.
Yeah. Okay.
We had a lady when I was over in November who was all embarrassed because it was sooty, and she wanted it to be clean when I saw it. But it still works. And then you see that black thing on top of the stove that goes off to the side.
Yes.
That's the two-pot top.
Okay.
And so they can put a couple of pots on that, and then there's a chimney at the far end.
Yes.
And we get it from EnviroFit. It's just got about an 18-inch chimney stub, but we manufacture a chimney system in Nepal, which helps provide some income for the iron worker, metal workers there. And so every stove that we deliver has a complete chimney system that vents the stove outside of the house.
So how big is this? Can't tell from the picture. It looks like maybe it's, 18 inches, 24 inches high, and maybe 30 inches wide, something like that?
Yeah, it's not quite that high. It's about 14 inches high and about 24, 30 inches wide. The whole assembly together with the pipes and everything else is about 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Does it fold up?
Well, the orange part is one piece,
Mm-hmm.
the black part is another piece, and then the pipes are individual. And the way they typically get delivered at the, what they call the last mile is on the back of a porter. And, the porter can carry 3 or 4 of these in a basket, and then another porter carries 3 or 4 of the black tops, and another porter carries all the chimney pieces.
How much do they weigh?
The whole system's about 20, 22 pounds.
And so, I want to get into exactly how you distribute this and what the expenses are and so forth in a little while. But what's I think I'd like to talk about now is how you, George, got involved in all of this. Where did you start, and what was the road that took you to being the chief cook in the Himalayan Stove project?
Well, the road had a long and somewhat tortuous path. My family has always been involved in doing some socially responsible things. My father was a doctor, was a pediatrician. He looked after kids, obviously, and was always, as part of his practice, involved in doing charitable work. So that was just part of my DNA, and I got started doing small projects when I graduated from college, and did that, and I'm still doing it throughout my life. I was on the board of hospitals and drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers, and on the board of trustees of my kids' school. So this is just part of what my family has as part of our value system. I first went to Nepal in 2001 on an expedition to Mount Everest. I wasn't climbing, but a number of my good friends were, and I was hanging out at base camp for a month. And on the way up and on the way back, we stopped in a lot of homes and lodges and got exposed to this miserable, smoky, horrible conditions. They burn wood, but they also burn yak dung, and I mean, some of it is just so horrible you can't stay in the room. Mm-hmm. I went back in 2009 and to a different area and got re-exposed to that. And later in 2009, I was trekking in Bhutan. And some guy told me about the stove. And it was one of those cartoon moments, where the light bulb goes on the side of the person's head. And I said, bingo, this will work. This will help alleviate that problem. And I had another motivation, which is personal and sad. I lost a son to suicide a few years before that. So I had set up a 501c3 to memorialize him, and I had not come up with a good idea for that. And Paul he and I trekked together and climbed together, and he loved the mountains as much as I did. So this fit in that framework, and it fit into my goal of doing something to memorialize his short life.
Oh,
so
wow! So that gives it still another meaning for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm passionate about it, but I'm uber passionate about it because of that. Because this is putting meaning both into my life and into his.
That's wonderful. Okay, we're going to take a short break, George.
Okay.
We'll be right back in a few seconds. That's George Basche, Chief Cook of the Himalayan Stove Project, here on ThinkTech Talks. And we're talking, of course, about the Himalayan Stove Project on community matters. And I guess I settle on that because I think this is for the benefit of the community in the Himalayas and elsewhere. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Jay Fidel of ThinkTech. On March 27th, at the YWCA downtown, Laniakea, we're having a luncheon panel program we call the Midterm Legislative Report. We're going to present our 2014 Legislative Midterm Update, featuring Bob Toyofuku of Hawaii Advocates as our moderator, and a panel of leading state finance officials who will tell you about what's going on in the legislature about money this session. It's really important. Senator David Ige, Chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, Representative Aaron Ling Johansson, Co-Vice Chair of the House Finance Committee, Representative Sylvia Luke, Chair of the House Finance Committee, Calbert Young, State Budget and Finance Director, all the people who are very important, who know about the state fiscal policy, the state finances this session. You know, they say we have a spare $884 million. How much do we really have? The Council of Revenues changed its mind about projections. And how are we going to spend that money or not? What effect will our, current $40 billion of unfunded liabilities have on all of this? And in an election year, what are the real priorities that are going to determine the money bills and the final result of the 2014 legislature as far as you are concerned? We'll cover current fiscal issues, bills of interest of the business community, and we'll look at the provisions, political dynamics, probabilities, price tags of crossover and passage this year. It'll be very interesting to find out what is going to happen here as far as your bills are concerned and as far as state initiatives are concerned. It's an essential program for anybody who wants to know the fiscal state of the state, or if you want to network with the legislators and like-minded attendees who are likewise interested in the subject. Sign up on thinktechhawaii.com. We look forward to seeing you there. Aloha. Okay, we're back. We're live. We're ThinkTech Talks, broadcasting from the lower level of Pioneer Plaza in the core of downtown Honolulu, talking about the Himalayan Stove project with George Basche, who created a nonprofit organization to distribute that to the world, especially the developing world. He's the chief cook of the Himalayan Stove project. So George, one thing I would like to look at from the point of view of, say, nonprofit entrepreneurship is how you did this. So you had a 501c3.
Yes.
It was a container, so to speak. And
Right.
now you decided at some point you're going to connect that up with the stove, the technology. How did you get that together?
Just like everything else, Jay, it was a process. We had the idea because somebody told me about the stove, and coincidentally, the guys that designed the stove are in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is about a 5-hour drive from my house. So I went up and saw them because I've learned over the years, Skype is great and emails are great and letters and photographs, but there's nothing like getting face to face with people.
Amen for that.
So I went up and met Tim Bauer, who was one of the inventors and designers of this thing. He and I hit it off very well because we both had a mechanical engineering background, so we were talking the same language. And he told me about their process of designing the stove and the manufacturing and so forth, because I've been in manufacturing in an earlier part of my career, and I know that one of the weak points in any manufactured product is how good is it and how reliable is it, how well is it designed and so forth. So my meeting with Tim in their labs up there, I got pretty comfortable that they had done a first-class job of design. They were already in production at that time in India, which is not very far from Nepal. Mm-hmm. I mean, it neighbors it, but the production was a 6-hour drive or something south. So we decided to get a small number of stoves in on a pilot basis. Now, let me segue off a little bit. I've had enough experience in business, and particularly in dealing with Nepal, which is a very chaotic country from a governmental standpoint, that I knew that I didn't want to get involved in setting up our own organization in Nepal. That would have been costly. It would have been we would have had a lot of intrusion from the Nepalese government, and it would have been a real monster, and it would have made the program non-functional. So I turned to some of my friends in the mountaineering community who, have been in and out of Nepal for decades, and they in turn put me in touch with a number of NGOs, of non-governmental organizations that were already working in various areas in Nepal, providing, building schools, hospitals, providing educational supplies and facilities, and generally working with people in different areas, so that we could work with those existing NGOs and that they could do the contacting with the people who would be getting the stove. So we ended up, I jokingly say that we're in the typical Jewish middleman role. We sourced the product, we raised the money, we set up the distribution, we've got the warehouse facility in Kathmandu, and we arranged the logistics. So we bring the stoves in, one container load at a time, which is about 1,500 stoves, and then the distribution process takes place. But coming back to the pilot run, we brought in 48 stoves, and we distributed them among several of these organizations and asked them to put them in homes and see what the reaction was. And that was done in October, November of 2010. I went over in March, late March, early April of 2011, and I went around, and they were scattered pretty much all over the country, and I went around and got my own firsthand view of what the acceptance had been, and which was all good. It was all positive. We learned that we needed to add the chimney system to it, because even with the efficiency, they were still kind of smoky inside. So we made that decision, and then I asked these NGOs. I said, "Well, how many do you want?" And they gave me a list, village by village, monastery by monastery, added up to 4,000 stoves. Mm-hmm. Okay, we definitely have a market here. We definitely have a demand. And so then I started thinking, now how these things cost us about $100 by the time we get them delivered to the end point, you know. And so we were looking at $150,000 that we needed to get this thing launched. And I thought, man, that is going to be a real hurdle to come to people with just a bright idea and say, you know, please give us $150,000, or even three people give us $50,000 each. Mm-hmm. So fortunately, I have done well enough in my real life, in my entrepreneurial life, that I fronted that first container so that we could get the thing started, so that we could in fact have proof of concept. Mm-hmm. So we got the first container over in the beginning of 2012. 1,500 stoves. We got the distribution started. There were lots of bumps and hiccups, but the partners were very enthusiastic, so they helped solve all of these. And I've got one guy in Nepal who works with us part-time, who's very resourceful. He's a 40-year-old guy, and he's actually another engineer. Got his electrical engineering degree in Budapest, of all places. Yeah. And his English is good, and he's well connected, and so after we've got it put together so that it worked, and we've just gotten our second container load of stoves delivered a couple of weeks ago, and those are being distributed, and when that's done, we will have 3,000 stoves in place.
Fabulous. So do you leave it to the NGOs to actually take them down the road,
Yeah.
or do you monitor that, you know, with hands-on?
We monitor that after the fact. We don't say, you know, here, you're going to get 400 stoves or 100 stoves. We say, okay, where do you want them? Tell us the profile of the community, and we work with them on that. And then there's one other fact that the NGOs were very adamant about in the early stages. They said, you can't just give these stoves to the people. They have to have some investment in it. They have to make us contribution. And we didn't want to sit back in the U.S. and say, okay, everybody has to give $10 towards a stove. So we said, we'll let every community, even if they're in the same territory of the same NGO, we'll let each community make their own decision. Some of the communities, their contribution is community service. They'll spend, a mom will spend a day a month in the child care center, or they'll do some work in the schools or so forth. Others put some money into it. The money amounts are anywhere from $3 to a max of $10. These families make $20 a month, you know, mm-hmm. So you can't ask them to put very much in, but we can ask them to have a sense of ownership. And most recently, the suggestion of one of our partners, one of our NGO partners, the money that they have contributed has gone into a microfinance fund that's administered by the community itself. So they get $10 per family, and it goes into the fund, and then a group of the mothers will agree, okay, Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Nam or whatever gets $50 to do a cell phone charging station or to buy a yak or whatever. And then when they pay the money back, then it recirculates and helps another family. So in addition to helping cure the health problems and the environmental problems, we're helping the communities to bootstrap themselves economically. So it's just an added bonus that's really terrific.
Now, the NGOs administer the program of payback, or do you both? Who handles that?
We push it down to the village level. You know, the NGOs help organize it. You know, they do that, the starting point administration, but we rely on the mothers groups or whoever's doing it, the community association. But we go back and check. We require that the NGOs give us periodic reports. I was back for 2 months last fall, and we went around to a dozen different communities and checked up on what was going on.
That's great. So you don't really have to worry about that because you don't care to have any part of it. It goes back into the local community anyway, and that satisfies the investment requirement you spoke about. Yeah.
You got it. That's it. You know, they have a commitment and an investment, and we don't touch the money, and it doesn't impact on us, other than that we know that the people are invested in the system.
Now, what about who gets a stove and who doesn't get a stove? It doesn't sound like you're talking about giving one to everybody in the town, are you? How do you select the worthy families to get the stove?
No, we actually are giving them to everyone in the town. We would rather slow down the distribution and have every family. I mean, unless there's some really, really wealthy person, but that hasn't happened yet.
No.
Because if we have a town, a village that has 50 families and we can only allocate 30 stoves because of supply limitations, then somebody has to make a decision as to who gets it. And that opens the door to favoritism and to hard feelings. So if we only have the 30 stoves, we tell the NGO, please find a smaller village so that everybody can be taken care of.
Yeah, it reminds me of sort of an estate planning concept. If you have a bunch of kids and you decide you're going to favor some of them and not favor other, you're giving them the gift of argument. You're giving them a gift of unpleasant, invidious comparison the rest of their lives. So it's really better to treat them the same.
You're absolutely right. Of course, in the estate planning, you're gone, so they can argue away. But in our case, I'm still around, and they'll egg on me, and I don't want that.
Do you go out there, George? Do you go out and say hi? Do you walk the village and talk to people about it?
Absolutely. It's impossible to do that now for 3,000 stoves or even 1,500. But I try to get back there every year and get around to some of the communities. And nobody knows when the chief cook is coming, which is good. There's some surprises here.
What about education so that people know how to use it, know how not to break it, and so forth? Education and maintenance. Suppose it does break. Who does the warranty work, so to speak?
Well, there are no moving parts. So there's really nothing that can break. There's one ceramic piece that, if it broke, it would still work. It wouldn't be quite as efficient, but it would not be it wouldn't be non-functional. The manufacturer has a 5-year warranty on it.
Really?
The problem with that is that UPS does not stop by somebody's home to return it in original packaging for warranty work. So
theoretical.
Yeah, it's pretty theoretical, but the fact that where they're distributing them in other parts of the world, they do have access to replacements if there's a problem, and the fact that they warranty it for 5 years was one of the things that gave me confidence in the product. And we've been out now for about 2.5 years, and there are no problems that I'm aware of. And if it crops up in anything other than an occasional thing, we'll figure out how to deal with it. We've solved every other ongoing problem, and we'll solve that one.
So your relationship with the guys who invented the stove, the engineers and so forth, they give you do they have the stoves manufactured, or do you have the stoves manufactured? You simply buy the stoves from them, or how does it work?
Yeah, they organize the manufacturing, so they're on top of it from a quality control standpoint and from an allocation standpoint, and we place an order with them. It's just like going to any other manufacturer. We've got to give them a little lead time. We can't call up and say, give us 1,500 stoves tomorrow. We have to give them 60 or 90 days lead time so that it gets in the production schedule.
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
It really sounds like it runs a parallel to the Hands project that Brad Wong, the doctor I mentioned, is engaged in, because he buys, or actually it's another charity, buys the hands from the manufacturer for about $50, and Brad is the agent, so to speak, the medical agent who finds the people who could use them, and he helps them understand what it is. He teaches them how to use it, and he stands behind it. In the case, for example, of one that doesn't work for some reason, doesn't fit properly, he'll go and fix it on the next trip. So it sounds like you're in the same general juxtaposition of being the agent for delivery.
Yeah, and it works smoothly. The guys that developed the stove have gotten there's a newer model that's quite different, that's much larger, that will work in an institutional setting for a school or an orphanage or a monastery. And we're just having 2 samples delivered to Kathmandu actually this week. We're going to put one in a monastery and see how it works in that environment. So these guys are dynamic, and they're always looking to broaden the impact that they're able to make. And here's another product that we will have available to serve an additional need, parallel but expanded.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take another short break, George. This is George Basche. He's chief cook and bottle washer of the Himalayan Stove project. You're here on ThinkTech Talks. I'm Jay Fidel. We're talking about that project as a matter of community. We'll be right back.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
We're back. We're live. We're at ThinkTech Talks talking about the Himalayan Stove project, which is, it's not just a stove project. It's an idea that could be translated into many things that could be done for the developing world. With George Basche, who's the chief cook and founder of the Himalayan Stove project. George, it sounds like it's easy. The way you sound, somebody experienced in engineering, somebody experienced in business, could do this. And it sounds like we could all step up and do our version of the Himalayan Stove project. But surely there have been obstacles and challenges. What have they been?
There are always obstacles and challenges. I've had enough experience that I set some guidelines for ourselves, and it's not just me that's doing this. I've got a small group of other volunteers, and we're all volunteers. Nobody takes any money out of this. This is a very, very legitimate and philanthropic operation. We pay our own travel expenses when we go to Nepal, so we're all doing this because it's the right thing to do. I set up some guidelines which were for us to stay as minimally engaged with governmental organizations as we could in Nepal, because Nepal is a third world country and it's going through growing pains. They've had a revolution and they got rid of the monarchy and they're trying to find their way, and they don't have a lot of experience in that, and you can get caught up and bogged down in it. That was one of the reasons one of the important reasons why we selected a group of existing NGOs that, that were already working in Nepal, that had experience, and they have established relationships with the governmental entities. So we don't have any direct relationships. And other people have suggested, well, you could do this, you get USAID involved. And I say, that's going to just make our life complicated and distract us from our mission. And so we have, I don't want to say circumvented, but we have eliminated the need for us to have direct contact with the governmental bureaucracies, because our NGO partners are already doing that.
So what is the scenario you worry about? I mean, are these governmental agencies and individuals going to look for corruption on it? Are they going to stand in the way for, irrational and self-interested reasons? What do you worry about? Or are they going to just create delay in processing, find ways to delay the program? What do you worry about?
Yes to all of those. there's continual turnover in governmental agencies, so there's no way to establish meaningful relationships. Many of the people are corrupt. Nepal is unfortunately very high on the list of corrupt countries in the world. We just ran into a problem with customs, and we just had to shell out an extra $9,000 in customs duties, not in bribes, because I refuse to do that. It's immoral, and it's also illegal in the United States. but they were holding up our container and giving us all kinds of hemming and hawing, and I knew what they wanted, and the answer was no. We just paid the duty. And they, if you're an NGO registered in Nepal, for instance, if we had wanted to register in Nepal as an NGO, we would have had to have a parallel organization in Nepal with a board of directors that was the majority of whom were Nepalese. So you can get all kinds of confusion going on there. Let me be gentle in my words. We would lose control of the thing, and the laws require that every NGO submit a detailed plan to the government every year of what it is they're going to be doing, and then the government comes in and audits it. Now, they don't have the personnel to do it every year, but you never know when they're going to come in. And guess who gets to pay for the audit? We get to pay for it. If they want to send inspectors in the field, we get to pay for it. So we've got an unknown cost situation. So, it's just, frankly, if we had not been able to do it with our NGO partners, they build it into their program. So this is just a small part of their program, and for us it would have been the whole thing. I wouldn't have done it. Life's too short for that.
Yeah. What about the NGOs themselves? I mean, do they offer challenges? I guess they're from various places in the world, various charitable organizations from various people. Americans don't realize how many NGOs are out there that are not American. So who are you dealing with, and what challenges do they present?
They wonderfully present very, very few challenges. One of the primary one that we started with is the Himalayan Trust that was founded by Sir Edmund Hillary in the 60s in the Everest region. They're headquartered out of the UK and New Zealand, and they've been a great partner. There's another organization out of the UK that's run by a illustrious climber, Doug Scott, that's called Community Action Nepal, and he's got health posts in 10 different districts in Nepal, and Doug's an easy guy to work with, and his people in Nepal are easy to work with, and so are the ones from the Himalayan Trust. There's one very unique relationship that we have. There's a remote area of Nepal that used to be an independent kingdom, and it's now part of the country, but the guy that we're working with, if they still had the kingdom, he would be the 22nd Raja of the Kingdom of Ustan. And he's become a very good friend, and he's got 2 kids that are being educated in the United States, and I visited him a couple of years ago, and he saw my iPad, and the next thing I knew, he had an iPad, and so he lives in the 21st century, and he takes care of that area for us. We have, with one very small exception, we have had no problems at all in dealing with the NGOs. They're so grateful for what we're doing. They're very cooperative and they're very competent.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not every agency, not every government agency anyway, fully appreciates that you're doing good work that helps their people. You're actually handling their burden and improving the lives of those that they should be concerned about themselves. And that's the frustrating part. I mean, I know this from my discussions with Brad Wan, that you're trying to do good work for the people on the street, and the government agency is actually standing in the way of letting you do good work for the people on the street. What exactly do they have in their minds?
That's absolutely right. And that's the shortcoming of most bureaucracies. And I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, and I'm very used to solving problems and avoiding those kinds of things. And we've been successful so far, and knock on wood that we'll be able to continue that success and continue to cooperate, but not have them get involved in our day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. We're going to take one last short break, George. That's George Basche. He's the chief cook and bottle washer of the Himalayan Stove project. He joins us by Skype from New Mexico. And this is ThinkTech Talks, talking about the Himalayan Stove project. We'll be right back after this short break. I'm Jay Fidel. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We're back. We're live. We're here with George Basche, who joins us by Skype from New Mexico, and we are broadcasting from downtown Honolulu in the Pioneer Plaza building. We're talking about the most important project in his life currently. That's the Himalayan Stove project, where he is the chief cook and bottle washer. And it's a very notable project, runs an interesting parallel to what Brad Wan does, and we had him on the show only a few days ago in Nepal, in helping people in Nepal. Brad Wan does it by elective surgery with a team of the Aloha Medical Mission. George does it with stoves that make better sense in the villages. So George, here we have this parallel. And we have, Doctors Without Frontiers, and we have a variety of organizations that are springing up in the first world to help the third world. Is it your observation that this is something that is increasing, that this is something that is more efficient and effective now than it was, say, 20 years ago? What is the community like in the community of nonprofit organizations that try to help in the third world?
It is definitely increasing, Jay. That's been, I haven't studied it, but that's the observation. There are a lot of wonderful organizations working in Nepal, which is where we're focused. The American Himalayan Foundation. There are dozens of groups that are doing things with cataract surgery, with people's health, with education, and they're all doing wonderful work. And we're all faced with one core challenge, which is raising money to do the work that we do. And so we're always out knocking on doors. We're looking for corporate sponsors and institutional sponsors. We have some wonderful sponsors in the outdoor industry, people like Adidas and Catula and Patagonia, and well-known companies, MSR, that provide some funding for us and provide support in other ways. And we reach out to the general public. We have a website. We do direct mail. We do every type of outreach that we can to get people aware of what we're doing and hopefully motivate them to provide funding. And that's what all of these nonprofit organizations, whether they're from the U.S. or whether they're from Germany or Sweden or Austria, or many countries are involved in Nepal, they all have similar issues.
What do you attribute the growth to? Why have more organizations come on scene? Why have more sponsors and contributors, contributed money? What is it in the migration, the evolution of the global community that is making this happen?
I think there's an increasing awareness that letting governmental foreign aid carry the ball on this is certainly not the only way to do it, and sometimes it's not the most efficient. We have political situations in the U.S. where there's a important credence given to entrepreneurship and a lean and hungry organization doing something rather than something that is gigantic and bureaucratic. I also think that as people in the first world have done better financially and emotionally in their lives, that it's becoming more visible and more important for them to give something back, and not to get that third car or the third condominium at Beaver Creek or something like that. They're paying more attention to social responsibility on a global basis.
Yeah, I mean, one thought comes to me is that the government in general, I mean, not just limited to Nepal, but government in general may not be as efficient in this kind of thing. They may get all stuck on themselves and not be able to carry out the mission. And in a number of activities like this in the world today, it's more efficient for people like you to be doing the job than the government of Nepal or any number of other countries. And it puts into perspective the whole role of government, if you will, in countries where the people need support, they need the safety net of one kind or another, and it's not so much government anymore.
I think you're absolutely correct. There's an expression that I've used a lot, which is that entrepreneurs like me, I've lived my life as an entrepreneur, our mission in life or our process in life and business or whatever we do is solving problems. And the role of the bureaucrat, which is the government or even a large private organization, is avoiding problems. How do I not get criticized for not having done the right thing?
Yeah.
And so they tend to slow things down.
The other thought that comes to me, interested in your thought about it, is that just as we have business entrepreneurs, we are coming into an age where we have nonprofit entrepreneurs. Not to say they make a lot of money, but they're able to organize business organizations that do nonprofit work, and they are no less the entrepreneurs because it's nonprofit. That's what you've become.
That's right. I still have a couple of profit-making businesses, so I've essentially got 3 full-time jobs. But this is the one that gives me the greatest reward, because we're really, really transforming people's lives. It really it's meaningful. The others help finance my ability to do this, and that's fine. That's a good balance.
And that touches on the last thing I wanted to throw at you. And that is this: in a first world where we can get decent health care and live to an age beyond the original career of our lives, we can have multiple chapters. We can have multiple careers, either simultaneously as you are, or sequentially, as a lot of people. They go from an early retirement to another career, and a lot of people are, or at least they can, and that's the revelation here, they can go into another chapter, another career in which they are doing nonprofit entrepreneurship, in which they are doing good work. And it offers, an extension of your life, an extension of your worldview. And it seems to me that's got to be part of this movement, if you will, that we're talking about.
Yep, you're absolutely right, and it's very satisfying. Every step, every difference that you can make in the life of an individual or of a family, of a community, of a district, of a country, makes you feel good.
Yeah, that's exactly what Brad Wong says, by the way. You got to meet him.
Looking forward to it. Maybe next time I go to Nepal, I'll stop in Honolulu and we can get together.
Please do, George. That's George Basche, chief cook, bottle washer, founder and organizer and operator of a Himalayan Stove project. And you can see that on HimalayanStoveProject.org. We've been talking with him about the project and about community in the larger sense here on ThinkTech Talks. Thank you so much, George.
Thanks, Jay. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for the time.
Aloha.